Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Feldman, and I gave this presentation a little while back, and there were some technical difficulties with the recording, so I am doing this again. So, hello to anyone out there watching, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a student, whether you're a staff at a K through 12 school. Super excited to have you on here, and hopefully you can learn a little bit about Rewild Your Campus and implement this at your school. So I am the founder and co-director of Rewild Your Campus. And this movement started one day on the beach volleyball court when I was a student at UC Berkeley. I'm originally from Hawaii, and I was recruited to UC Berkeley to play beach volleyball. And one day when I showed up for practice, our coach had said, if the ball rolls off the court, just let it go because a toxic herbicide had been sprayed everywhere around the court. And so I was concerned about this. And so was my teammate, Bridget Gustafson, and she grew up in Illinois, surrounded by industrial agriculture, and was familiar with the dangers of pesticides. And for me, growing up in Hawaii, there's a lot of pesticide testing to test the GMO corn seeds resistance to pesticides. And so when I was in high school, there was a big battle between community members and these agrochemical corporations because a lot of community members were getting sick from the pesticide drift that they were using to test on the seeds. So anyways, when I heard the coach say that there was a toxic herbicide sprayed everywhere around the court, obviously I was concerned and I wanted to do something about this. So me and Bridget came together and we went to our coach and we said, hey, can you put us in touch with the person who was spraying? And so we met with him and we said, what were you spraying? And he said glyphosate, Ranger Pro. It's a glyphosate-based herbicide similar to Roundup, if you've heard of Roundup. And we said, can you not spray this around young women in reproductive age with skin exposed, right? And he said, sure, I just don't have the staff to pick the weeds. And so we said, great, our team will pick the weeds. We have 19 girls, we can do it. So before practice, every once in a while, we would pick the weeds, and he agreed to never spray there again. And what me and Bridget learned that day was a really powerful lesson that, if you come to a problem with an offer to help and be part of the solution, you can go pretty far. And it's not just, pointing out a problem and yelling at someone about it, but it's really being engaged in the solution. And so we decided to expand this movement that was just beginning to the rest of UC Berkeley's campus and work to ban herbicides from the entire campus. So that's what we did. We put a student group together. We got the student government involved. We worked alongside the grounds team to hand pull weeds, and we got a grant to bring in an organic land care specialist. And let me just make sure this is okay, it is recording. I just want to make sure that this doesn't happen again. And so we brought in this organic land care specialist, and he trained the grounds team on how to do organic natural turf care on two of the largest green spaces at UC Berkeley. And from there, the grounds team had the tools and they were able to expand this to the rest of the campus. And so I graduated in 2018 and really had no intention of expanding this beyond Berkeley. We had gotten Berkeley to go organic. That was really exciting. I moved back to Hawaii just to try to figure out what to do next and apply for jobs. But I ended up being in San Francisco in the summer of 2018 after I had graduated. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with this man's story. His name is Dwayne Lee Johnson. He was a groundskeeper for the Benicia Unified School District. And he would spray the same herbicide we were exposed to on the beach volleyball court, Ranger Pro. He would spray that daily on the job, and he had a couple instances where his backpack sprayer leaked. He had some rashes that later he realized had turned into non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, terminal cancer. And so when he got diagnosed with that, he made the connection that this could have been from the chemical. And so he ended up suing Monsanto. So this trial was going on in San Francisco, and I was so fascinated and inspired by his story and just this inspiring story of a person, an everyday person who is going up against one of the largest agrochemical companies in the world. So I attended the trial for many days. And sitting there, my blood was just boiling, hearing the Monsanto lawyers say, he didn't get cancer from this, our products are safe. And yet they were able to find documents and emails from Monsanto admitting that their chemical causes cancer. So Lee Johnson ended up winning the case, $289 million, which was later reduced to 78 million. But there's since been thousands and thousands and thousands of people who've sued who've also had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And so sitting there during that trial, I realized that if I had the tools and the knowledge to expand our movement beyond Berkeley, then it felt like a responsibility to do so, because there were probably countless people like Lee who wear their protective gear and still get cancer. And so I decided in that moment that we would expand it beyond UC Berkeley. So I wrote Lee a letter just saying, you're so inspiring. I gave it to his lawyer. And after the trial, Lee reached out to me and asked how he could help with my campaign. So we ended up bringing him to Hawaii, and we did a speaking tour to the Department of Education. And they were so moved by his story that we ended up getting herbicides banned from every public school in the state, which was really exciting, and was really just the beginning. And so now we are at what has become Rewild Your Campus, this national organization to eliminate toxic chemicals from all schools in the US, and not only eliminate toxic chemicals, but really think about our landscapes and how we can have more climate resilient, biodiverse landscapes. And so what is the problem? The problem is that most universities, and I know many of you watching are affiliated with K through 12 schools, the aesthetics standards maybe aren't quite as high as a university, but still you have a lot of campuses, no matter where you are, that look like this, right? It's all lawn. And this is an issue because not only is lawn not biodiverse, it doesn't add anything to the ecosystem, it's extremely water intensive, but most people manage lawns using synthetic pesticides and fertilizers, which are very toxic for humans and for the environment. And so as a result, most Americans, 80% have glyphosate in their bodies. That's just one chemical that's used on lawns. And I think that percentage is actually higher now than 80% when I made this. So it is quite scary. So what's the solution? Well, when we're talking about, K through 12 schools, colleges and universities, there's over 130,000 schools that enroll over 19 million students a year. And so this is so much land that we can rewild, and so many students and staff and faculty and community members that are worth protecting. So what is conventional land care? When we talk about conventional land care, I wish that I was interacting with you all, because I don't know, what you already know about pesticides. I would maybe ask some questions, but if you're not familiar with any of this, conventional land care relies on the use of synthetic chemicals. Pesticides, which is any chemical used to kill a pest. That's the umbrella term. Within that, you have herbicides, you have fungicides, you have insecticides, and then there's fertilizers, which people add to the lawns to artificially, put life into the soil and make it green and all of that. But it's synthetically made. It's has very, very damaging impacts to the soil and also to our waterways. That's what causes algae blooms. We will go into that in a little bit. But mainly this type of chemical uses, it prioritizes short-term aesthetics and immediate results, but there's no thought around the long-term health of the soil and sustainability. And so it's damaging to soil health, to plant health, and to our greater ecosystem health, and of course to human health. So, here's just a little visual. So you can see someone spraying the pesticides. Maybe you've seen someone, spraying like this before. It goes into the soil. It gets taken up in the plants. So if you're eating that plant, if you're growing food, obviously that food is now toxic. It also vaporizes into the air. It drifts with the wind. It ends up in our rainwater, and it also drifts into lakes and has damaging impacts to marine life. And again, like when I was talking about with fertilizers that have, excess nitrogen and phosphorus and all of that, cause these algal blooms, and that takes away oxygen from the ocean and is very, very damaging to marine life. So pesticides and biodiversity loss. Pesticides are very tied to the insect apocalypse. I don't need to read you all these bullets, but we'll just give you a second to kind of take this in. 40% of insect species globally are in decline, and a large reason for that is because of pesticides. So a lot of your schools might have, a pollinator habitat in one corner of the school, but if your lawn next to that pollinator habitat is sprayed with pesticides, it's going to drift and kill all of the pollinators that you're bringing into your school. So you have to make sure that the whole campus is not sprayed with toxic pesticides. And here's just kind of a visual so you can see. I'm not going to go fully into all of these, but you have conventional land care, and which is what I just talked about. You have IPM, which is integrated pest management, and that basically means pesticides are used as a last resort. The problem is there's no regulation of what this means. So some schools that say they practice IPM are very great when it comes to not using pesticides. Some use a lot of pesticides. It's sort of, there's really no way to understand how many pesticides are used with IPM. So we prefer to focus on organic land care. I put product swap here in the middle. I want to reiterate, when we're talking about organic land care, this does not mean swapping out organic products for conventional products. What it means instead is, and that might be true, there might be some organic products that are used in organic land care, but what it really means is if you have a lawn and instead of spraying a weed killer to kill the weeds, you're investing in healthy soil so that the grass will be strong and thick and outcompete the weeds. And the methods of doing that are mowing higher, so you're not killing the root systems of the grass. You're overseeding with grass seeds to thicken up the grass. Maybe you're applying a compost tea. Maybe you're aerating the soil to reduce compaction. There's all of these types of practices. And if you have questions about any of this, I will leave my contact info at the end and definitely reach out. And finally, we have rewilding, and that is taking this to the next level. And instead of just treating the lawn and making it organic, we are thinking of how can we replace the lawn with native plants, or maybe there's an underutilized space that was invasive plants, and we're, swapping that out for natives. So like I said, organic land care is a holistic method. It's the soil up approach, no synthetic pesticides. You do composting, mulching, changing the mowing height, you're aerating the soil, and then mechanical pest control could be, pulling the weeds or using some sort of machinery to get rid of the weeds. Some campuses that we've worked with have used like steam weeders too, like a vinegar-based steam or foam. And the goal is you're really working with nature instead of, and taking sort of an approach to prevent the weeds from coming in the first place, as opposed to waiting for the weeds to come and then having to spray them. And rewilding is reintroducing native species to an area. It promotes biodiversity, home for pollinators, and ideally it's less management because you're not having to constantly, these native plants will outcompete the weeds and they're not invasive. They're not going to take over an area. Hopefully you can do minimal management in those areas. So, more about Rewild Your Campus. We're a student-founded, women-led nonprofit, and our goal is to see every school in the U.S. go synthetic pesticide and fertilizer free by 2030. And not just, pesticide free, but really turning campuses into these climate resilient, biodiverse spaces. So, why do we do this work? First and foremost, it's to protect students and groundskeepers. Groundskeepers are the ones most exposed. They're the ones, that are closest to the chemicals. And also students, especially young students, are even more susceptible to illnesses relating to pesticides because they're still growing. And if you're talking about little kids, they really get in the grass, and this grass could have just been sprayed with a pesticide. So it's very dangerous. And it's something that it's kind of unbelievable that we let this happen. But it's something that we can put an end to and do it fairly quickly. It's also to build climate resilience and foster biodiversity. I like this visual because, you know, if you're a teacher watching this and you're thinking, how can I relate this back to a lesson or just something students care about or something I have to teach? There's all these ways that pesticides intersect with other issues, pollinator health, workers' rights, climate change, you know, leadership, education. So you can kind of choose whatever angle you want to take and teach it through that lens. So our key programs to making this work happen, we have student networking and coaching. We meet a lot with students every week. We have a network that students can join if they want to get to work with and learn from students across the country who are doing this. We have a certification, which I'll talk more about. We have a boot camp that happens twice a year. The next one is in August. It's free for students and it's also for community members, and we teach how to bring this movement to your campus. And then finally, we do actual technical training to initiate pilot projects. So with the pilot projects, that is taking a lawn area. We're actually literally doing one on this lawn that you're seeing here. And we do soil testing, and then we bring in an expert that will train the workers on how to get that lawn to be managed organically. And then ideally those workers have that knowledge and can expand that to the rest of campus. So this is what we did at UC Berkeley, and now we're doing it all over the country. And organic lawns, it can reduce water usage by millions of gallons, which I know in Texas is very important. There's an immense cost savings because you're no longer having to purchase these pesticides anymore. And it increases the microorganisms in the soil, which can mean sequestering more carbon. Here's some of the pilot projects we have going on. Nothing in Texas right now, but we have Ohio, Iowa, Georgia, Wisconsin, New Jersey, and our latest is Stanford in California. And this is just a cool story. So Drexel in Philadelphia, they underwent a pilot project, and this was really all pushed by students. One of the students, Sean here, one of the student leaders, got the grounds team to agree to a pilot project, and the grounds team was so impressed by how it went that they decided to eliminate all pesticides from the entire campus grounds. So that was really exciting. And that's the goal with the pilot projects, is like the school, the grounds team learns how to do it, and then they commit to expanding. So with rewilding, it's even better than organic lawns, right? Native plants use 4 times less water per year than a lawn, mitigate stormwater runoff. Native plants can reduce air pollution and absorb carbon dioxide, and also we're losing our pollinator home so quickly, and so it's so important, even in a little space, to just be able to provide some food and habitat for our precious pollinators, because without them, we wouldn't have any food. So here's another cool story when it comes to the rewilding. Grinnell College in Iowa, these awesome students created an initiative called the Too Much Grass Initiative, and we worked with them, and they got their grounds to agree to removing the lawn here and instead transitioning it to native prairie. But when they hired the horticulturist to do the job, he was just gonna spray the entire grass with Roundup to kill the grass and then put in the native prairie. And so we were like, wait, that's not the point. That defeats the whole purpose. You have to, remove this grass without spraying Roundup. And so the students organized tons of other students to come out and manually, they had a sod cutter and cut the sod. And actually, community members came and picked up that grass for their own yards, which was awesome. And now the prairie looks absolutely beautiful. This is like a recent picture of it. And yeah, it was an awesome, awesome experience. Here's another example of this is ivy that the students manually removed and planted this native prairie project, or native plant project, excuse me. This work with students we work with in New Jersey was featured in NPR, which is really exciting. And here's just some notes about our impact. We got glyphosate banned from all the University of California schools, so that protects hundreds of thousands of students every year, and we're working with the UCs to commit to going completely organic. So that's still an ongoing conversation. And I will talk to you about the launch of our Green Ground certification. Oh, here's students at UTRGV in South Texas. So here's just some of the schools that we work with now. You can always pause this video if you want to check them out. So one thing that I would say is if you're looking to make this change at your school, the first thing that you want to know is, are pesticides used in your community on your campus, right? If you don't know, then that's where we can work together and I can show you. I have an email template of something you can send to your grounds to find out. If you know the pesticides are used, is your grounds team open to change? If they are, I can also work with you and give you kind of like the different solutions, whether that's doing a pilot project, whether that's kind of just like giving them a little bit of consulting of problem solving and figuring out, how they can reduce the amount of pesticide usage and all that. If they're not open to change, that's when we really encourage students to do more, create a petition, get organized around this, and get people really excited about it so that the grounds team feels some sort of pressure to change. Here's the email template that I was talking about. If you email me, I'll leave my email at the end. Oh, also you can reach out to my colleague Shayna. Her email's right here. But if you email us, we can send you this template, and it's basically just something that you would send to your grounds team to inquire, what kind of happening on campus, and framing it in the way of, we would love to get our campus green ground certified. And that's why we created the certification. We're not necessarily, obsessed with getting as many schools certified as possible, but kind of using it as a tool. Schools love bragging about all their different certifications, like Bee Campus USA and Tree Campus. So here's just another one focused on pesticides that you can use and leverage to get schools excited about this. And I wanted to share this story because I know a lot of you are teachers, but there was a teacher named Paula in New York City, and when she taught a kindergarten class, she introduced this issue of pesticides that were sprayed in New York City parks. And the Black Institute is like a think tank that proved that glyphosate was sprayed in much higher rates in Black and brown neighborhoods than in the more white and affluent neighborhoods and parks. And so it kind of brought a lot of attention to this issue, and kind of like who's exposed the most when it comes to toxic pesticides. And anyway, she rallied her kindergartners to get behind a bill that they can push. And it wasn't until they were in 8th grade, I guess now here it says 7th grade, but I know that when they finally got to 8th grade, it was this bill was passed. And so all toxic pesticides in parks and playgrounds and other spaces that are owned by the city have stopped using pesticides, which is amazing. And so if you're a teacher, just know that like you do have the power to inspire your students to do this. And if you ever want to talk to that teacher, Paula, she's amazing. Would be happy to put you in touch. But yeah, here she is. So awesome. To push for the ban. It was important to empower children. Never let kids stay feeling angry, upset, and helpless. I won't have to worry anymore if I'm just running around that there might be pesticides there. How awesome. I also wanted to turn your attention to this bill. When I created these slides, it was the middle of the legislative session, but I know that is now has now ended. But I did want to tell you that there was this bill. Let me see. I wrote down who was the one that introduced it. It was a bill introduced by Rep. Lacey Hull with co-authors Reps. Kerwin and Schofner, introduced in December of 2024. And it's a bill to prohibit glyphosate herbicide at primary and secondary schools. So that's super exciting. It's a, bipartisan, it's a, I think, well, it was introduced by a Republican, but I think it would have bipartisan support. And I don't know the status of it now. I guess it's sort of on pause, but just wanted to, give your attention to that if you are interested in kind of pushing at this from a policy perspective. And now about our green ground certification. So we have bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. It's kind of similar to the LEED building certification, if you're familiar with that. And bronze means that 50% of the landscape um, is managed without synthetic pesticides. And then it goes up to silver, gold is 90%, platinum is 100%. And we actually have not certified a K through 12 school yet. So we just launched this a couple years ago and finally certified our first 12 schools, which is really exciting. And if you are interested in getting your school certified, you can visit our website, rewildyourcampus.org, and there's information about it, or email me. We certified the Dell Medical School, the UT Austin Dell Medical School. And I know since y'all are in Texas, I wanted to just point this out. So that was super exciting. We certified them at the platinum level, so they are completely organic. And this one was a couple months ago. UCLA became the first California campus. And so this is really, it shows like UCLA put this, on their website. They're super proud of it. And so using this as a way to get schools really proud of what they're doing. Here's just some photos. We give you a sign that you could put up to say this grass is safe to sit on. And finally, I want to just circle back to the boot camp. In the boot camp, we teach about the history of pesticides, the science, and we go into how to build a campus movement, how to do campaign strategy and organizing. So if you're interested in this, again, you can go to our website or email me and I can get you the link, and would love to see your students there. Here's a QR code. The next one's going to be in August, but you can put your name on this list and then we'll send you an email when we have the date for that. And I just wanted to end with this. This is actually UTRGV, Rio Grande Valley. This is, I don't know what school this is. This is another university in Texas. I actually don't know, but I saw this online and I was like, awesome. This is what campuses could look like. It doesn't have to be just perfectly manicured lawn. I mean, we're in Texas. We have rocks. It's hot. We don't necessarily need a bunch of grass. This is what the natural landscape, closer to what the natural landscape would have looked like before. And so returning back to that is one of the best things that we can do for our ecosystems, for our insects, for our climate. Here's a QR code for our newsletter if you want to sign up, and you'll just get, we don't send too many emails once in a while, just so you can see what we're up to. And yeah, get in touch. Here's my email right here, mfeldman@rewild.org. Here's our website. And thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm serious, I would love to, hear what you learn and what you're thinking and see how we can help you. So I really appreciate it. And I will stop recording now.